Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Burak, and I am an astrologer and an energy healer. I work with the energy of Archangel Metatron and Master Sandalphon, who incarnated as Jesus, in helping to facilitate healings for people through the stories that their natal charts tell. So, in all of our natal charts, there is a story of duality. Just like we are duality, we have the dark and the light, so do the planets. So when you're looking at your natal chart and you see Saturn intercepted or in retrograde or squared by Jupiter, there's typically a story of someone who was in authority, a time maybe when you were in a position of authority or your ancestor was in a position of authority, and that authority was abused. It was used to, dictate people, like to rule over them, like the Saturnian dictator. And for all of us are carrying those stories in our DNA, in our energetic bodies, and in our subtle bodies. It's just like Johann Kepler said in the 1500s that when the baby is born, at the time of birth, the soul has the energies of he didn't say, I'm not quoting him exactly, but the soul is imprinted with the energies. And there's some truth to that. Because what happens when we incarnate is that we start playing out the roles of duality. So we incarnate a lot of places, and we've been doing it for much, much longer than we imagine. You've had more past lives than you could probably count. And all the while that you're playing out, the light, you're also playing another story of the dark. It's kind of like Star Wars with the Force and the balance of the light and the dark. But in essence, we all are sparks of light. We're all part of the energy of the Alpha and the Omega, of God, of the universe, of unconditional love. The energy of the Alpha and the Omega, or God, is a pure energy of unconditional love. Okay? And we are all sparks of that energy. And what happens as we start incarnating and we take on these stories and these experiences is that we forget who we truly are. And partly that's because we're carrying that in our energy. So just like they found trauma stored in the survivors, Holocaust survivors, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, we are all carrying traumatic stories in our DNA. And those are shown in your natal chart. So if you're talking about a planet like Saturn or Pluto and you're relating, if it has a trine with another planet, that's an easy flow of energy between them. But there's a story there, and it's usually not a happy story. So what happened with me when I found my natal chart, I have Saturn retrograde conjunct my ascendant, a very small, not a lot of degrees between my ascendant and my Saturn retrograde, and it squares my Mars in exaltation in Capricorn. So I had a lot of lifetimes, and so did my ancestors, where we came in as those ruthless, brutal dictators, okay? And so that's why when I read an interpretation, the very first interpretation that I read of a planet was Saturn. And it said you will face obstacles and difficulties and you will be alone. No one will be there to help you. Don't complain yourself. Move on. Okay? And so I thought, whoa, that's it. First of all, how do they know that? And then I thought there must be some truth to this astrology stuff. And I just kept going from there. And as I was doing it, I had Metatron, who I met as the Holy Spirit when I was a child, and then Master Melchizedek. Melchizedek he's also mentioned in the Bible, but he's the one who taught all of us astrology, okay? So when you're listening to things about astrology, or it really resonates with you, you're remembering. You're just remembering, and the astrologers that you're listening to, that you're learning from, are reminding you of something that you already know. That's actually what he's saying to me now, is it's innate, okay? It's something that you have in there that isn't conscious maybe, but it's in your subconscious mind. So when you look at the planets as bodies of energy, so if we're talking about Jupiter who sends us on a quest for the truth of our own existence, who wants to expand our consciousness, who wants us to reach, to go higher, to go further, to go to more, Jupiter. Okay, and Jupiter blessing us and bringing us abundance and gifts. If you have Jupiter in the 6th house or in retrograde or in a sign or a constellation that's intercepted, if you have it at 0 degrees, there are so many different, or squared by Saturn, or maybe even aspecting Saturn a different way. There's so many things that can disrupt that energy, okay? But there's a way for you to find these things out through your natal chart and to clear those energies, okay? You don't even need an outside healer to do that with you. All you have to do to resolve the issues in your natal chart is to read what the interpretation says, okay? And then to forgive yourself that story. That's how we ascend. We recognize the shadow within us, okay? And we allow ourselves to be washed through with the energy of forgiveness and unconditional love for ourselves, and then asking forgiveness of all of those who we've played out the different roles of the story that taught us that we were, with the Jupiter problem, it would be unworthy, okay? And that we're not allowed to receive, no thanks, not for me, I don't deserve that, okay? With the Jupiter issue, you're not going to be one that's going to run out and buy a lotto ticket because you just have that. Like, oh, that would never happen for me. And that's what we're resolving, okay, through forgiveness. So you don't even need an outside party to do that. Just by looking at your own natal chart and what you learned from an astrologer who reads your natal chart, you can find out what the story was, how that originally started, and why you're carrying it on in this lifetime. And then you can heal that and raise your vibration, because as that story clears from your DNA and from all of your energy, you become lighter, okay? You start to, we're always ascending, but you're ascending through the healings of those stories. And when you do the healings from those stories, you're removing them back. If you go through the energy of God, you're removing them for all of the generations who've been playing out these stories since its inception. Okay, so since it first began. I have some clients who we go back to cave time. Sometimes we go off planet to the galactic age. And you can do that too. That's another thing that I wanted to share today. I'm not any more special or any more gifted or any more psychic than anybody. That's the truth. Everybody has those gifts within you. They're gifts. They were freely given to you. They're part of who you are. They're part of your story. Okay, and that's shown in many of your planets. Your Neptune, it's shown in your Pluto, it's shown in your 8th house, in Scorpio. It's shown all over the natal chart, okay? It's shown with your Vesta placement and what that is making contact with. That's the energy of the High Priestess, Pallas Athena. There are a lot of asteroids too that are very helpful in that story, especially for the feminine aspects, because we didn't get a lot of the planets. But at any rate, when you're doing these healings, you can do that yourself. You can ask your angels. Ask that a being of light and love that comes to you through an energy of unconditional love be there to help you, to hold your hand through this journey. They can walk you through it just like they did with me. And that's how I came to enlightenment, was through the planets and learning my astrology and the story of me and how I got into this, well, I'm not going to say what kind of fest I usually call it when I'm talking to Jesus or the angels, but you know what I'm saying. When you have Saturn retrograde on your ascendant and squaring everything in your chart, it kind of makes life rough. But there was a reason for that. And the reason is that we're balancing the karma. It isn't a punishment from God. No one forced our journeys on us. We choose how we come in. We choose how we leave. We choose the contracts that we enter into with different soulmates, all in an effort to learn the lessons and to forgive ourselves and forgive them and let it go. Okay? So when I was first reading these stories, I was still in the mindset that I needed to go outside myself and ask forgiveness. The truth is that God, even before those actions and those experiences were a thought in your mind, you were forgiven. God is an energy of unconditional love. He's only, or she's only, loved you and accepted you exactly as you are, never with judgment, never with an idea of punishing you for anything. When we come in and we have those parents who don't nurture us and don't give us shelter and don't give us any structure or let us feel like there's something that we can rely on, it's because we were those parents, or it's because we were a ruler or a dictator. There's a story in your chart. And what keeps people from coming into their full power, their full Pluto, is facing the darkness within, the shadow side that nobody likes to look at. And it's always what this person did to us, or, I was, always busy with being the victim of all of these things and all these awful people. And the truth is that they were just fulfilling their contracts with me, okay? And that's what's always happening, is that in an effort to balance the karma, before you come in, you decide with the soul family what roles you're going to play and who's going to play them with you. And then you decide, you have like a multitude of choices, is what Metatron is saying, for like what you want to create in your life, what you want your experience on earth to be for this time, for this incarnation. And then you come in at the time that the planets are aligned in that way. Literally, the stars align just for you, and just so that you have that imprint when you come in. Everyone has a gift to bring forward. Everyone has a sun. The sun is Leo. Leo are creative gifts, where we shine, and living out the higher energies of our sun is always what our soul is wanting us to do, is to get to those higher energies. Mine happens to be in Scorpio. I have the constellation of Scorpio and Taurus both intercepted. So that was a lot for me. Scorpio and Taurus are the second and eighth house. What you're talking about are issues of worth and value, or not feeling it, that you have any, or that you're worthy of any, and not allowing yourself then to shine. If your sun is in a house that's intercepted, or a constellation that's intercepted, there's some inability to shine, okay? And that's what we're all trying to get to clear out these lower energies that we're carrying around in us, that are told in your natal chart. The story of you, the story of your soul, is all wrapped up in that natal chart. And when you begin to unravel that story and you face the shadow and you forgive yourself the shadow, that's when you begin to bloom and to blossom and to shine. And you're able to pull forward those creative gifts and the things that you've mastered, your own gifts of ascended mastery, the I am within you. Once you clear out those stories that you see in the natal chart, then you're able to come to the higher vibration of the planets, okay? So if you have, like, say, I have Saturn square Mars. So for me, that's about bringing structure, first of all, to myself, through showing myself love for myself, since Saturn's retrograde in Taurus in the first house, okay? It was about showing myself that I love myself and that I was important to myself. And then that energy transmuted from not having any self-love to having a baseline, a structure, a foundation that we are able to then build something on. Saturn wants us to build something. If you build it, they will come, really. Once you get that structure in place and you work out your Saturn issues, that's when Saturn opens the floodgates. He's the gatekeeper, and he opens the floodgates to reward you. Saturn's not all bad news at all. Saturn is the great teacher. And sometimes we've chosen to have lessons brought to us in a harsh way. And that isn't anyone's fault. That isn't the fault of the person who gave you the lesson. And, you can forgive yourself and just get rid of all of the fault that you're carrying around, or the blame that you're carrying around towards yourself for how things are playing out. But that Saturn square Mars, then I'm able to put into ambition and drive and like building something, making things come to fruition is what he's saying. Mars and Saturn in configurations help us to set goals and work toward achieving them. And, a lot of us, because of all the lifetimes that we came in and played roles as the masculine, there's a lot of stories of war and aggression and anger. And that was how we got stuff done, was driving forward without care of who was in the way. We were just getting it done. But we can transmute those energies. Or if you have Mars at 0 or in retrograde and you're not able to get that, going for yourself, that's a story where you were most likely aggressive in another timeline, and you weren't, and then to correct it, you kind of overcorrected to make sure you weren't going to have any ambition or any anger or any aggression. But you can heal that story, and then you can reach for the higher energies of the planets. So you're always wanting to forgive yourself for the lower vibrations of the story told by your planets, okay? So that you can get to the higher vibration of the planets. And when you do that, by forgiving yourself, you're able to transmute those energies then into the higher vibration. And all you have to do really is to just start researching your own chart and looking up what this means and what that means. And when you read something that doesn't resonate with you, just leave it there and go to something else. They will help to guide you to the astrologers that can help you, and to, the books, or even like Google. You can Google. I used to hear like, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And I would be up till 3 a.m. and then realize like, oh no, I've been up doing this all night long. But it's always a case of something that you're holding against yourself for something that you did when you were, not the person that you are now. And you are the only one that's stopping that from being released from your energy. All you have to do is to forgive yourself those stories. If you're talking about a Neptune issue, then it's usually an issue where there was some lie. Even it could be a lifetime when you came in and you were a false prophet kind of thing. I mean, I've done that. I've seen myself do all that. And I forgave myself. And Pluto is all the power, right? In the shadows, the secrets, the things in your subconscious mind that are stuck in there. Once you dig into that Pluto and really look at that story and what it could mean, and if there was an abuse of power, and you're able to forgive yourself and transmute that, that's when you come into the fullness of your power. You're able to shine your sun, your Leo, get your creativity and your psychic gifts and your abilities that everyone possesses. It's just a matter of getting to it, okay? And then you're able to share your story with others, Chiron, and heal them through that story. So Chiron is also, something that Chiron is orbiting the sun between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn being the Lord of Karma, or that which restricts us and holds us back, and then Uranus being the freedom. Once we heal the wound of our Chiron, then that opens up all kinds of Uranus doors of freedom for us. And, the sign of the water bear and cosmic creativity and all of the things that you're perfecting in other existences in order to bring them to fruition on this planet. That's your 11th house. That's Uranus. That's Aquarius. So once you are able to learn the energies of each of the planets, Venus is about how you love people and how you receive love. And it's also where you have issues of worthiness or being unloved, or you've learned conditional love instead of unconditional love. Our moon story, like, do you have that safe in the nest feeling that you get in Cancer, where it's the soft place to fall and you can let down your hair and be yourself and you're completely accepted and loved? Do you have a wounded moon or a wounded 4th house, or what's going on in the constellation of Cancer for you? It's always a matter when those stories are sad in this lifetime. It's always because it's a balancing of the karma, and it's when we played out those roles, in a different way, or in the same way that we experienced them, I guess I should say, in this lifetime, in a different way than we would choose to now. But, we've always made our own, it's always been free will. We've always made our own choices. No one saddled us with this birth chart and we're like, why did I do this to myself? I know, I was there at one time. But once you accept that you've made these choices, it takes you right out of victimhood, and you're able to see, oh, I just need to forgive myself. It's not always like so easy breezy coming to enlightenment. Having to face the shadow is not always a fun time. But, you've got your beings of light and of unconditional love who are around you to support you, to protect you, and to lead you through this time. For all of us, the planet is undergoing a huge shift in consciousness. It's playing out physically with climate change, and we see what's going on collectively with just like there's so much anger and vitriol in the air. But at the other side of that is that there's a much brighter story of light. Okay, we're just not as loud, but all of us, if you're watching this, all of us, okay, are holding the energy of love and of light and of acceptance and peace. And there are a lot more of us than we realize. There are a lot more of us than there are of the people who are yelling and screaming and angry, really. And those are typically younger souls. We usually do that kind of stuff when we're like fresh out, or not fresh out, but we're younger souls when we're going through that kind of things. Just like almost like immaturity is what is the way you can look at that. But yeah, so if you're interested in doing that for yourself, you can ask your guides and angels and beings of love to help you to sift through your natal chart and find out your story, find out why your Saturn is acting in the way that it is, or like how that's showing up in your life, wherever you're feeling restricted and blocked, or if you didn't have that firm foundation and that reliable, stable father energy or authority energy in your life. I know for my kids, they've got a lot of Saturn moon or fourth house Saturn issues because I was the parent that disciplined, and I was the one that had structure. It's just the way it was in our family. I was the disciplinarian. So, well, I have Saturn on my ascendant, so there you go. But yeah, whatever authority figure that was that didn't give you that feeling of being loved unconditionally, you can find out like where that started. That's typically what we think that God thinks of us because of something that we've done. And it's just not true. God's always there with open arms and loves you, and you're a spark of the energy of God, okay? We're all connected through that energy of unconditional love. And we can get back to that place. That's where we're going with all these shifts. That's what we're going to go back to. We're going to go back to utopia. So I would like to see a lot of more people start doing this through their natal charts, because it's possible to do that. And like I said, these planets, the stories of astrology. Master Melchizedek taught them to every single one of them, us, and he continues to do that today. And when you learn the energies of the planets, it's just a language that your mind's being reminded of it. Okay, it's like a fresh new story, and then it's like, oh, this makes sense. At some point, it starts all fitting together, and you just get it, And a lot of people interested in astrology have a story playing out from lifetimes when we were the astrologers who didn't think that it was possible to change the energies of the planet. It was like you're saddled with this chart and that's it. But the energy of creation, the creator created the planets. So the energy of creation and the energy of forgiveness is stronger than the energies of the planets, or I should say the lower vibrations of the planets, because every planet has a higher and a lower vibration, just like we are duality as well. So it's looking at like the darker stories or the shadow stories told in your natal chart, and then forgiving yourself all of those stories, that's how you get to that higher vibration. You just have an easier chart to work with once you take a look at those and you think like squares. Okay, squares is a good example. What they always told me is squares are powerful. And I used to joke with them that they were just telling me that because I had so many squares. And they were trying to make me feel better. But it's true. Once you work through that energy, you really can use those those are powerful energies. Mars square Jupiter, that's a story of being really lazy, or, believing that because of conflict that you are not worthy of anything. Like that's not for you, because you have so much anger inside, or that anger being, something that comes out like just a huge explosion, Jupiter. But you can transmute that energy and you can use it to bring healing. Jupiter is a centaur. So I know I'm using examples from my own chart, but you can relate these stories to your chart. And you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the way that the planets are speaking to one another. Maybe it's not harmonious, but you can transmute that story through the energy of forgiveness and unconditional love. And then you can reach the higher vibration and you can change your story. You are here to create your life. No one has any marching orders for you. The angels aren't going to tell you what to do. They're waiting for you, okay, to come to the knowledge that this is your life, that you have free will, that you're able to create your life. They're ready to lend a hand as soon as you're ready to step out and to begin doing that. But the first step in doing that, before we start creating our lives, or maybe at the same time really, is healing and forgiving yourself the story of why you can't move forward, why you feel restricted, why you feel like there's something that you've done that's really, really bad. And you don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. You just have this feeling that you're guilty of something. Okay? Those are all found in your planets. All of that is found in your planets. So anyway, my name is Jenny Burak, and I wish all of you the very best. These are exciting times. The Great Awakening is here. It's very exciting. And, it might look like on what's happening, geopolitically and with all the climate change events happening around the world, it might look like the end of the world. It's just really the beginning of a new world. And we're all on the same team, marching forward, walking into our enlightenment and toward utopia, and to leave this planet a better place than we found it. So wishing you all a lot of love and joy and peace on your journey. Bye-bye.